The Xbox One is the best console for zombie games, and in this video I hope to show you why, with the sheer number of zombie games on the console, but also with the quality of those games too. My personal collection of Xbox One zombie games is already grown to almost more than the Xbox 360 zombie games. But just one of the reasons why I say the Xbox One is the best console for zombie games is because through backwards compatibility I can play most of my favourite Xbox 360 zombie games on my Xbox One, which means there is a huge library of zombie games playable on the Xbox One. Before we start the countdown, here are 12 zombie games that didn't make the list. Let that sink in. What other console could you discount 12 games even before getting onto the top 10 list proper? It's not even like the games I discounted were bad. Some of them were quite good and were actually on my last top 10 list. But for whatever reason, another game made the list over it because of my selection criteria. So if you watch these types of videos to discover new zombie games, you should think about checking out some of those 12 games too. Just in case you're wondering why some of those games didn't make the list, I should probably very quickly go over my criteria that I used to pick my top 10 lists. Number 1, I try not to pick too many games from the same series, if possible combining it into one number. For example, you won't see me listing Dead Rising 1, 2, 3 and 4, instead I'll just pick my favourite and dedicate that to a number. But obviously if I like one of the games in the series, I also like the others. I just don't want those games taking up too many numbers on my lists. Number 2, a zombie is a dead body reanimated. Number 3, zombies require a headshot to kill them. Number 4, the game features slow moving classic zombies. And finally, number 5, the best zombie games should have survival elements. So now that you know my criteria, let's get on with my top 10 zombie games for the Xbox One. I usually like to start my lists off with something a little bit more lighthearted and different to all the other games I'll play. Guns, Gore and Cannoli is definitely not like the typical zombie game I go for. This was recommended to me by a friend on Twitter and I would never have heard about it otherwise. Partly because it's a digital game and I rarely look at the Xbox One marketplace. In a nutshell, this is Metal Slug in a mob setting in the 1920s. I'm a huge Metal Slug fan, so this was really fun for me to play, and I think that the game's unique enough that it doesn't feel like a rip-off. The gameplay is really smooth and it's well thought out, some really interesting set pieces and platform elements. This is the kind of game just to play for fun. And I don't think every zombie game needs to be serious. I think there's room in the world for some fun games too, and this is a perfect example. At number 9, The Escapist: The Walking Dead may seem like another novelty pick, but actually this game has a lot of survival elements. It's something that very few zombie games have, which has always been strange to me. The main objective in any zombie situation should be survival, and I've always thought that the emphasis on any zombie game should be survival. But for some reason most zombie games are action games with no more survival elements than any other action game on the market. In Escapist: The Walking Dead you have to form a group of people and you have to craft items to get good weapons. Resources are scarce and it requires you to do daily tasks. Some of these tasks are quite menial and they're the type of thing that you might find yourself doing in a real zombie apocalypse. Being the leader of a group of survivors is a really interesting gameplay mechanic. If you don't manage your group of people, it's very unlikely that you'll complete any of the levels. And speaking of those levels, as a huge fan of the Walking Dead TV series, it's really cool to see all the main locations from the show making it into the game. Number 8, Killing Floor 2. The original Killing Floor was a PC game, and I always knew about it and always meant to play it, but for some reason I like to play zombie games on console. I don't know why that is, but for that reason I never played the original Killing Floor, but I was really happy to find out that Killing Floor 2 was actually on the Xbox One. For anyone who hasn't played it, it's a horde type game where you fight waves of zombies and other strange creatures. It's kind of like COD Zombies but not as claustrophobic. In Killing Floor, I feel like I've got a little bit more health and a little bit more chance of survival than just taking a couple of hits. At the end of each round you get to spend the points you earn on buying pretty much any weapon you want, as long as you have the money to buy it. There are all sorts of different classes and lots of replay value in this game. I found myself playing the same levels over and over again, and every time it would feel a little bit different. There's also a slow motion mechanic in the game where the game will just slow down, and it's really helpful actually for getting headshots when it does this. Killing Floor is much better played with friends. I did play it a little bit on my own, which made it very hard and actually kind of scary because it was so hard, but you can tell that this game is designed to be played with friends or more people. The matchmaking system was pretty good on Xbox One. I was always able to find a match, and the room filled up pretty quick actually. We had some big games in it. I think there was at least 6 people playing at one point. So if you have some friends and you're looking for a game to play together, this is definitely one to consider. Number 7. Call of Duty Black Ops 3 Zombie Chronicles. I've always criticised COD DLC packs for only ever having one zombie map, and said that there should be a standalone zombie mode. Well, with Black Ops 3 and Zombie Chronicles, this is kind of what you get. I've been bored of Call of Duty for a long time, and the only thing that kept me interested in it was the zombie mode. But even it became a pain because I would have to spend about £50 to buy a full game full of stuff that I'll never play just to play 1 or 2 zombie maps. With Call of Duty Zombie Chronicles, you get to play 8 remastered classic zombie maps, and they're pretty much 8 of my favourite Call of Duty zombie maps of all time. Not only that, but there are also 7 maps unique to Black Ops 3 through DLC. Plus, once you buy Zombie Chronicles, you automatically unlock the zombie mode for the single player, which means you can play through the entire campaign fighting against zombies. For me, this just makes Black Ops 3 the ultimate game for COD zombie fans, and to me it makes it feel like this is a standalone COD zombie game, which is what I've always wanted. I really like the theatre mode in this game as well, where you can rewatch some of your favourite games. This is just a really good game to play with friends. The only thing that has bugged me a little bit about COD zombies over the years is that the zombies don't die from a single headshot. I know it's a minor nitpick, and some people would say that the game would be too easy with this, but for me I think the game is actually kind of hard, and this might make it more manageable. Maybe it's just more of an aesthetic thing. The golden rule with zombies is you have to shoot them in the head, and for me, the minute I play a game, if that doesn't happen, it's just kind of a turn off to me. But maybe I'm just overthinking it. I mean, after all, Call of Duty Zombies has alien weapons and a kind of arcadey feel, so it probably shouldn't be taken too seriously. Number 6, Dead Island The Definitive Collection. This has both the original Dead Island and Riptide remastered, mostly just optimised and running at 60 frames per second. Although Dead Island never lived up to its legendary trailer, and it did get some bad reviews from people saying that it's kind of like a fetch quest game, it's easy to forget that this is one of the first big open world co-op zombie games on console. I remember hearing about this game way at the start before even the big hype trailer was released. I seen some very early screenshots, and the idea of being trapped on an island full of zombies was just unlike anything I had heard of or seen at the time. A large open world zombie game is the sort of thing that fans have been looking for a long time, and it was a big risk for Deep Silver to make this game, saying as there was no real precedent. If nothing else, Dead Island sent a message to other game developers that there's a huge crowd of people that want to play and buy zombie games. And although people were disappointed with the original Dead Island, Riptide addressed quite a lot of the issues with the original game, and I found it much more fun to actually play. There was a better atmosphere in Riptide, and a lot more guns available to you very early on in the game, which meant if you wanted to, you could pretty much run and gun throughout the whole game. So this is a great game to add to your collection. There is something really refreshing about Dying Light's DLC, The Following. Just when I thought I had enough of the Dead Island type of game, Dying Light got The Following DLC, which really piqued my interest and made me go out and buy Dying Light. The Following takes place outside of the city in a farmland area, and there's a real feeling of Night of the Living Dead playing this game. What's also really interesting in this game is that you fight both humans and zombies, and sometimes both together at the same time. I've actually sat outside an enemy human camp and made enough noise that attracted zombies into the camp, and had a really interesting fight between humans and zombies at the same time. In some ways I used the zombies to create enough distraction to get into the base to actually then help me fight the humans. Also, whoever thought about combining free running, an open world and zombies is nothing short of a genius. I thought this would be gimmicky, but it gives you so much freedom in tight areas where you can just jump over whatever you want. This type of freedom is going to make it very difficult for me to go back and play Dead Island or any other game that you can't climb walls or jump over fences. Number 4, Dead Rising 1 Remastered. I'm happy to put this game on the list because it was on one of my first ever top 10 zombie game lists when it was on the Xbox 360. I didn't realise just quite how much nostalgia I would have for this game until I started playing it. It also made me realise just how far gone the series is now. Compared to Dead Rising 4, there are just too many zombies on screen, so many that it's overwhelming. There are a lot of zombies on screen in Dead Rising 1, but it's never too much to comprehend. The best way I can sum up my feelings on the Dead Rising series is with a quote. Stalin said if you kill one person it's a tragedy, but if you kill a million people it's a statistic. What he means is that the human mind can only process so much suffering, and I would also say the human mind can only process so many enemies on screen at once. If you're only going to play one Dead Rising game, I recommend you start here. Number 3, Resident Evil Origins Collection. This contains both the remake of Resident Evil 1 and the remake of Resident Evil 0. The more time passes, the more I appreciate Resident Evil 0 for the masterpiece that it is. It might be the last of the survival horror Resident Evil games, but Capcom went out with a bang. I know it's not too many people's favourite Resident Evil game, but I feel like it's survival horror perfection. Resident Evil 0 was made for the hardcore fans, and it backfired for Capcom. While it was perfect for speedrunners and people who really liked survival horror, it alienated anyone that was being new to the series. Jerry Seinfeld was asked if he would ever make more episodes of Seinfeld. He said no, he would never make another episode, and the interviewer said, but it's what the public want. Seinfeld replied, my theory of show business is not to give the public what it wants. That's why they're not in show business. Capcom gave the hardcore fans what they wanted in Resident Evil 0, and it didn't do them any favours. The hardcore fans are actually only a small percentage of the people who buy games. If your game doesn't appeal to casual gamers, it might not sell very well. And I'm slowly starting to understand why Capcom went the direction they did with Resident Evil 4. Even if I never see another Resident Evil game that's a survival horror, at least I have the Origins collection. And 0 was a really good note to end on. 7 Days to Die is unlike any other game ever made. Except of course Minecraft, and then it's exactly like Minecraft except it has zombies. What is the perfect zombie game? I don't know every element to the perfect zombie game, but I do know that it would have survival elements, and 7 Days to Die is packed full of survival elements. You might write 7 Days to Die off because it looks so ugly, but Minecraft looks pretty ugly too, and if you're playing these type of games for graphics, you're missing the point. Minecraft is so successful because of how creative you can be. You have to use your imagination, and it's the same for 7 Days to Die. When you play 7 Days to Die the way it was intended, occasional bugs aside, it's one of the best post-apocalyptic zombie games I've ever played. What do I mean when I say the way it was intended? What I mean is when you play the game with your survival in mind. Most zombie games make the killing part fun. 7 Days to Die makes it a necessity, but an inconvenient necessity. So much so that you don't want to kill the zombies. And more often than not, the best thing to do when you see a zombie on your travels, it's just to keep walking. In many ways this game is a zombie simulator, simulating the best way of defending yourself against an army of zombies. You constantly learn from your mistakes in this game. For example, the first base I built was beside a river. I thought it would be a good idea to build near a river so I had an unlimited supply of water to drink, and that it would also act as a type of moat and protect me from any zombies. Now, from reading the zombie survival guide, I know that a zombie doesn't need to breathe, saying as it's a dead body, reanimate it. But I didn't expect the zombies to behave in this way in the actual game. And at one point a swarm of zombies came out of the water at me and I was caught completely off guard. These type of unscripted events happen all the time in 7 Days to Die, and it's why I love it. I have so many great things to say about this game that I can't fit into this video, but I do have a playthrough of it on my channel, so have a look for it if you want to know more. Before I reveal my number one, let's take a look at some upcoming zombie games that haven't been released yet, or at least haven't been released at the time of making this video. Dead Island 2 has been delayed for a really long time, and it's probably going to be really different to the footage you're seeing now, which is a bit of a shame actually, because I've wanted to play this game for a long time. With the promotional material they uploaded, it looked like they were pretty close to actually releasing the game. Hopefully something gets released, even if it's not like the early footage they showed. Far Cry 5 has a zombie mode called Dead Living Zombies. This is going to be another co-op zombie game. From what I've read, there are 7 different scenarios, which sounds pretty good variety actually for something that's just add-on. The only scenario I've seen so far is a zombie city, which is pretty much the perfect scenario really. I mean, I'm not holding out a lot of hope for this game, but once it's released I'll definitely check it out. Overkill's The Walking Dead was announced quite a while ago. They said they were working on it, but it's only until recently that they've actually shared some footage, in-game footage and concept art. The in-game footage looks incredible, especially if you're interested in storage shelves and light coming through blinds. Honestly, I don't have a lot to go on here gameplay wise other than the graphics will probably be amazing and probably the best graphics for any zombie game I've ever seen. All we really have to go on is a promise and some good concept art, but I'm sure we'll get more footage and gameplay as time goes on. I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but I think this could be something pretty special. Lastly, World War Z is getting a game. This took me completely by surprise. I wasn't expecting to, especially since the movie's been out for so long, I didn't expect this to get a game, but I'm really happy that it is. It looks kind of like Left 4 Dead, but so many more zombies. Saying as there's been no mention of Left 4 Dead 3 happening, this could be a really good substitute. But enough about upcoming games, finally let's get on with the number one game on my list, State of Decay 2. Despite some bad reviews, State of Decay 2 is currently my favourite zombie game. In many ways this is everything the first game should have been, and I don't even really see it as a sequel but an upgraded version of the first game. Also, while we're on the topic of bad reviews, I don't know why everyone's so surprised. Generally zombie games and movies don't get good reviews. In fact, most of the games on this list have received terrible reviews. The fact is, a lot of reviewers don't understand zombie games or survival games. If some of the mechanics from State of Decay 2 or any other survival game were in typical action games, they may be seen as broken game mechanics. But bugs aside, a lot of what happens in State of Decay is intentional. You can't get too attached to anything because nothing was built to last and the resources are scarce, which is what you would find in any good survival game. Apply that to a typical action game and I can see why people get frustrated. Scavenging for resources feels like a constant uphill battle, but if it wasn't, you might not feel the need to do it, and just like in the first game, I always find it really fun to load up on guns, go out into the world and see what you can find. It's a true testament to how good the game is. You don't need to rely on the story or the missions to have fun in this game, it leaves it up to you to do whatever you want. I don't get that feeling I did in the first one where I was being constantly nagged to do the next mission. Don't get me wrong, there are a few problems, especially with online multiplayer. There were a few things I wasn't quite expecting, for example just how dark it is, and plus my torch didn't work quite well online at times. But eventually I realised this was an intentional move, and the game is so much scarier at night time. So much so that after a long night, you're just praying that the sun will come up soon. In 7 Days to Die the zombies are more aggressive at night time, but in State of Decay they're just slightly harder to see. And it's amazing how much impact that has on the gameplay. I was also really impressed with how robust the zombies are. As a test, I was trying to shoot the legs off one of the zombies and see if it would die from getting shot in the legs. Now granted, a few of my shots missed, quite a lot of my bullets hit this zombie, and I even took both its arms off. It seems like the only thing that can kill the zombies is a headshot, which is another reason why this game meets the criteria for my list. I hope they iron out a few of the minor bugs in this game. I'm looking forward to seeing what the DLC is, but for now I'm just having fun with the main game. Let me know what you thought about my list. If you think I've missed any games out, please let me know in the comments. It's actually where I find out about a lot of games. If you'd like to support my channel, I have a Patreon page. And when some new zombie games come out, I'll make another top 10 list. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next video.